And this piece, the courtesy from the World Bank site, sets the tone for our conversation beautifully. Now, with environmental and monetary costs of automobile transportation accruing, urban populations increasing, and cities attempting to reinvent their urban course, many municipalities and transit authorities are looking toward rail transportation, at least seriously, with a lot of effort elsewhere. But is that our plan here in Ghana? Some advocates also argue that mass transportation in the form of rail can act as a catalyst to economic development. That's our conversation this morning with two gentlemen who can bring good insight to this conversation. Well, let's start from home. And Mr. Bernard Abeko Arthur is an urban transport consultant. Good to have you. Good morning to you.
My pleasure.
And also coming from Germany to share the German experience with us is Christoph Schoppmann. He's with HPC Hamburg Port Consulting.
Exactly.
What do you do exactly?
Well, our company is basically concerned with working all over the world to support ports and railroads and the modal facilities with getting more productivity, being more efficient, and basically developing their products there and contributing to the economy.
Ms. Arthur, you've talked about urban development many times here in our country. So I think it's appropriate to ask where we are today.
No, well, thank you very much, and thanks to your audience also. Yeah, where we are, I think we are in a quagmire. We've made some efforts towards urban development. We tried as much as possible to try to order our urban development in Ghana. The major efforts started in 2002. We crystallized that in 2012 with the urban policy. But we've become more projectized in our approach rather than a programmatized approach. We look at things short in terms of 4 years, and so we do not really conjecture where we should be in 20 years, in 25 years. And in urbanization, you can't do a short-term approach to things. You have to look at a long-term. So you will want to look at the statistics and see how fast your cities are growing. Until the 1990s, we saw a lot of our towns and cities declining. For example, you saw Commander Sugar Factory, because of its demise, the whole township of Commander becoming more or less declined in population. You saw places like Winneba, which also used to be a fishing area, go down. You saw places like Elmina. You saw places like Tafo in the eastern region also going down. It was a major cocoa research area, attracting a lot of people. You saw so many towns and secondary towns or third level towns which could have contributed immensely if we organize it well in urban development. Interestingly, for most of these secondary towns also, we had mass transportation in terms of freight. Railway was very much connected to some of these areas, but because of the demise, we shut down railway systems in the area. But as population increased, we sort of went to sleep a little bit. With the policy in place in 2012, a lot more talk has been given to urban development. But the major issues which should drive urbanization, which should drive organized urbanization, have not really taken off well. And for me, two things make cities or urban areas work. The first one has to do with energy, consistent and constant energy, because the city is the engine of growth for every country. And in the city, you have the industries, because location is the major economic factors that drive. And so people would want to move to cities where they can have reliable energy and be sure that they can have housing, they have water, they have good transport systems. So energy is the first major factor. And the second most important factor is transport. So if you shut your energy system or you are erratic in energy and you are not very organized in your public transport system where people can be sure that when they leave the house, in 15 minutes they can get to office, in 10 minutes they can get to industrial areas, then you are not really organizing it very well.
So we're stuck, basically.
I think we need a lot more push.
Okay. So I asked where we are in Ghana. Can I ask where you are in Germany? Obviously far advanced.
Well, regarding mass transportation in the cities, certainly we have a system that's well established in the big cities or in the major cities like Berlin and also in Hamburg, where my company is located. So in Berlin, for example, there's over 1 million people riding on regional trains on the inner city trains per day, and in Hamburg the numbers are not too far away from that. So that shows there is ways really that networks of rail networks within the cities can connect people, can connect or can create mobility within the cities, and this is only the rail part of it. There are certainly also a big bus system and other urban transportation system, but the rail portion of it alone caters for, as I said, in Berlin, over 1 million persons per day riding on these metros, etc.
Ms. Arthur, you've been involved in urban development in our country. In fact, you've been in charge at some points. So if we were to pick up from where we left off, because right now we're not clear where we are going, how much work would it take with all the things that we've done in the past?
A lot more work.
Really?
A lot more work. A lot more work because, knowing something and wanting to do something are two different things. Knowledge of the thing is good, but the will to really move is what is critical. And for me, we would require 3 levels of push. The first level of push will have to be the political will from the top. Are we going to focus on urban development with statistics at the back of our minds? All over the world, UN reports, World Bank reports, African Union reports. If you take the African Agenda 2063, it talks about aspirations for Africa. You talk about the New Urban Agenda, which was recently launched in October in Ecuador. It talks clearly about the fact that Africa is going to be the fastest urbanizing continent. And it even zeroes into the fact that we are going to have fastest urbanization in the West Africa sub-region. We have clearly seen in our Ghana statistics, if you use the 2010 population and housing census, which is, for me, is a bit outdated because we've gone almost 7 years down the line, we are seeing fast urbanization in our cities and towns. So it comes to terms that whilst we look at the gender element of it, because women are now more or less 51% of our population, urbanization has reached 53% of the population living in cities and towns. So for any government and for any people at the top, we have to look at these statistics and say that, hey, this is going to be something that can shock us or can move us in a different direction.
Yeah.
Population increase is very good and urbanization is very, very good if you manage it well. So for me, we need to get that top level.
Yeah.
We need a second level, which has to be technocratic. We need a core, a cadre of technocrats who may now want to say, let's focus and let's bring clear solutions, suggestions, proposals, policies in the area of urban development, looking at urban transport, looking at urban housing.
Don't we have enough of that already?
No, I think we need a particular type of technocrats who would want to venture into the area of bringing change, innovations, not the normal, route type of technocrat who rides and let things just be. Because, look, we ventured into urban transport. We did certain things. We were not successful in some of the areas. There has been some moderate improvements, but we could have done a lot more if we had more of such people in the area. And the last level, it has to do with our opinion leaders and traditional leaders. Looking at the fact that because we are increasing population, let's look at our urban areas. Let's look at the land system. Let's look at how we organize our markets. What about sanitation, central sewage systems? Do we have enough in the system? So For me, it has to do with 3 levels, and we need those 3
Yeah.
levels before we even talk about financing.
You know, before you mentioned the going beyond the 4 years, and realistically, because of the system that we practice, can we ever go beyond that? Can it ever happen?
It makes a lot of sense to think long term than to think short term in urban development. It makes a lot of sense. If you think short term, you are not really solving your problems. You are just scratching part of the surface, not even the whole surface. We need to look at it. Look, you can't have a full cycle of city development within 4 years. You can't. You cannot. You must think long term.
Yeah.
10, 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
And that's something I would like to support as well, like the first level regarding the political will. That's something which is crucial to the whole process, really. An example from Europe would be the situation in Switzerland, where Switzerland really 30 years ago decided to spend a lot of money, like billions of Swiss francs, to invest into the railway network, just in order to get rid of the congestion that they had and that they were experiencing or expecting for the future. So they invested a lot of money, and now they have trains that are really going on the minute, and it's really reliable. It's connecting the whole country, people from all the different cities in the country, and it's working. But it's not something, and that's regarding the long-term aspect of it. It's not something that you start doing and 5 years afterward it's done. It's a long-term project basically, and it needs also a long-term political support on that.
You've experienced our cities quite a bit.
Yes.
I don't know if it's only Accra or you've had the opportunity to go to the Western region as well.
So far, only Accra.
Only Accra.
Yeah.
Okay. So what do you think? If we're to take some drastic measures, dream big and try to put something on the ground and get some good rail system running.
Oh, absolutely.
Is it possible?
I think anything is possible to say that for the first, and I think what my impression was so far here, there is a lot of individualized traffic, so a lot of motorbikes, cars, etc., which we also have in Hamburg, but it's we also have the additional component of, as I said, these regional trains and buses, etc. So what I think is the difference is that we have the mass transportation system there for the purposes that we need it, for these longer commutes for people going to work, and that we have also the individual transport system, cars, etc., to do those individual tasks that you need to do, going shopping and whatever. But a big part of really the public transportation is within the mass transportation system. Otherwise, it's not possible in Hamburg, because there would be so many cars on the road that you congested all the time. And what you need is really reliability, and you need to go to work. You don't. It's not possible that you say maybe it takes me half an hour or maybe 2 hours. You need to be reliable on that, and that's what increases mobility and basically contributes to growth.
But that's the thing, because some people travel and they experience what is out there in Europe, and they ask the question of, why can't we do the same? We have our leaders traveling there almost every day, and then they see the things that are there, but why can't we do the same here in Ghana? But I just want to ask, the fact that we have a railway ministry now, does that make any difference at all?
I think it's a good step, a first good step, to want to focus on railways. Ideally, railways, road, air, water are all modes of transport. And so it would have been ideal to probably put all of them within a transport set. However, probably depending on the policy of government and the particular approach that it wants to prosecute, it sets up the railway ministry. I think it's good, because it's good in the sense that you're going to have policies, you're going to have programs, you're going to have a particular drive, you're going to have a focused approach towards the situation of railways. So for me, it's okay. Behind this whole thing has to do with the financing. You know, you would want to look for funds to really implement. We are talking of a railway system based on the master plan that is going to spend something like 25 billion USD over a period of about 20 years. And you want to look at a figure 20 billion or 25 billion, and government of Ghana may not be able to, you know, source
raise
all
that.
that. There will have to be private sector involvement. There will have to be a whole lot of dynamics around it to be able to get the figures, the money to fund this. So that is one of the major issues.
Yeah, but how far would this amount go? In reality, what would it do?
No, it's going to do the tracks, it's going to do the infrastructure from south to north, and then the agenda is to link the south to Burkina Faso, that far. Also get networks east and west, as well as do urban rail. So you have cities and towns that are going to have railway systems installed in there. But I think the first major thing will have to do with the intercity, which has to do from the south to the north, from the east to the west. So that is what is going to happen. But let me just hazard to say that private sector funding is crucial for this kind of development. And I have fortunately been privileged to work in certain economies where I've seen how they finance their public transport system, and that they have a tax system that supports funding of public transport. And the tax system is not placed on the people, placed on companies and investments.
Oh, okay.
So every year, particular companies contribute some amount of money in form of taxes to the city governments. And it's very informative for us to identify the fact that city governments play a major role. National governments also play a major role. But national government provides particular policy direction, while city government does the actual implementation at their
We don't
city.
have that clear distinction here in Ghana, do we? I don't see that.
We have decentralization. Maybe
Yeah.
we have to deepen it to achieve that. We don't have it yet, but we have to.
We have all the nice things in the books, but I'm not sure in actual practice it's that clear.
Mama V, until recent, I didn't know that a place like Chifopraso could have its own government, local government, and do their own medium-term plans and have their own infrastructure. Of course, they depend on central government flows. So we have had some moderate improvements in decentralization. Maybe we have to deepen it, and I am very much optimistic that if we are going the way we are talking and the way we are going, if we deepen it, we may get there. City governments, and I think there is some talk, I don't want to sound too polite, but there's some talk to want to have election of city.
Yeah, the MMDC is.
If that is done, that will also push. So we are moving in some particular direction.
Okay.
If we're able to do that, and I'm using the word if advisedly, if we're able to do that. So we have had some reasonable development, but we need to put in a lot more. See, a whole metropolitan area of Lyon in France funds their own bus, rail, and tram system from taxes, as I was talking about, in addition to central government flows and private sector funding. It's not rocket science. And interestingly, we don't need to make the same mistakes that some economies have made. The examples are there. It has to do with political will. It has to do with leadership. And it has to do with a cadre of people who have the knowledge and have researched and can provide alternate solutions. And it is there. It is not. It's not away from this country. It is there. So I think we can do it.
Mr. Sharma, the Ghana situation, if we want to seriously develop our rail lines, the system, for a consultant such as yourself, somebody who deals in this, what will be your interest really?
Yeah, so it's funny, we just met 5 minutes before the show started, and we agree in so many things, because first of all, to refer to what you just said, regarding transportation as a system, so not only rail as one piece, but transportation as a system, so railway is a piece, road transport is a piece, etc. It's important to do the right the right things with each of these individual components of the system to form it a whole transport system. So in Ghana, I would definitely think about linking the different major agglomerations to each other by intercity connections, basically, in order to create mobility within the country, or to increase mobility within the country. And I wouldn't even stop at the borders. I would also try to create connectivity to the neighboring countries, because also that creates more mobility. We all know that mobility is a driving factor for growth. That's the piece which is taking the broader look onto the broader country and onto the neighboring countries. This is not only true for passenger transport, by the way, but also especially for the freight transportation to the ports, to Takoradi, to the port of Tema, etc. So it's important to also have a big a really reliable connection there regarding the cargo transportation. But then also within the cities, the inner city transportation is certainly something which I consider crucial, especially when you consider that there still is a drive to people moving to the cities because jobs are there, etc. So absolutely the link between the different cities, and then within the cities a highly performant rail system or transport system.
You would usually use a bicycle to work, is that it?
In my case, I'm using a car.
Okay.
That's due to a special situation, since the office is at the other side of the river, and public transportation on that end is a weak piece in Hamburg. Okay. Otherwise, it's a pretty good system, but on my special case,
but at least you see where I'm going. Some people have said, there's the other question of, are we willing to park our cars and join a public transport system? Or ride bicycles, that is? Do you see that? Because I'm here with you. I don't know, maybe it's a big dream.
Let me surprise you with some statistics. All the studies and research work and outputs of research work points to the fact that in Africa, in Ghana, we do a lot more walking. We cover more distances walking than driving. That's it's very...
Walking to where? Because I obviously can't walk from Kuntunse to Kokomlemle.
Absolutely, you cannot. But the fact that you don't does not mean other people don't. So we are looking at the total population, and we are looking at the distances covered. So people walk more than driving cars. That's a fact. Statistics point to that. It does not also preclude the fact that motorization is increasing.
Okay.
Motorization is increasing because now our economies are getting better than they used to be. We have a growing middle class that prefer to buy their own cars.
Yeah.
We have a growing middle class family sizes where you have a reasonable, on average, 2 cars per family.
Yes.
And then what is sad is that you have a growing middle class that live in the peripheries and not in the inner city.
Correct.
And then also the fact that, and that is the sad part of the whole thing, which hurts me, is that because we do not have a good educational system that tries to cite community schools within the community and improved and good schools, families are growing their children in cars. And this emerging middle class seem to be raising their children in their cars in the morning. Families have to get up around 4 a.m. Children have to get up at 4 a.m., very sad. And that they have to be cleaned or bathed either at the wee hours of the day or sometimes in their cars. And they take their breakfast in cars. Some of them complete their homework in cars, and they drive to the schools to be able to beat the traffic. And then it's not very healthy, but it's also because of the urban dynamics that we are having. So yes, motorization is increasing with its own sociological factors surrounding it. So we have more cars coming into the city center, but the challenge is that the city center, we have not improved on the urban design of our city centers, and so we have a lot more choke, congestion taking place in the city center, and a whole lot of issues. It does not mean that we don't have solutions. We can have solutions to this. It will require bold decision. It will require leadership that had the guts to say we are taking these bold measures, not for ourselves, but for the people of the city, not for those for the next 4 years, but also for the next 20, 30 years, so that the city can breathe, become livable, and become a city that can really attract and retain the required investment.
And if I may add to that, that's a very good point. This needs to be done, and it's way easier to do it now than to do it in 5 years or 10 years, because when you have even more congestion, then you feel the pressure, it might be really way harder to get through the objective and to install that system than it is now.
I wanted to take you just a little back. Whilst you were in charge of urban development, urban transport, yeah, sure. Did you ever contribute to our National Development Planning Commission activities? Because, you know, we before, and I don't know, that conversation hasn't come up yet, we were thinking about a long-term plan as a country, a 40-year development plan.
Yeah.
Was there contribution from this sector?
I try very much to avoid saying yes when it has to do with contractual issues. No.
Okay.
But yes, certainly, I have, and we have contributed to that. I believe in a long-term agenda. I believe that we must have, you might not have detailed planning which covers 40 years, but it's important to have a perspective. It's important to have an idea of where you want to be. Let me just fix it this way. How do you want your city to look like 20 years from now? And it's important that you have a fair idea of where you are and where you are going. So in terms of that, yes, a 40-year perspective is important. 20 years is important. 10 years is important. 5 years is important. But the future must be clear in your mind of where you want to get to. And let me just add to this. Whilst I was doing my grad school in the Netherlands, I had the chance to look at the fact that a city in the Netherlands, I don't want to mention names, had a clear idea of where they want to be 50 years. And so it was not a detailed plan talking about activity and all that, but it was perspective in terms of programs and agenda.
Okay.
So if you take the issue of transport, they said they want to be the hub of European economics or European commerce. And so they linked their port to their rail, and then they looked at, and they had a clear picture of where they want to be. And they linked land to that. So every inch of land in that particular city, they know what it was going to do 20 years. They know what it's going to do 30 years. They know what it's going to do in 50 years.
Amazing.
And they went further to do what we call a scheme and put it on a board. So you go to the city center and they have it there. Now, this is a clear idea of where they want to be. And it's very important for us to have that. And so for 40 years, yes, it's good. For 20 years, yes, it's good. 10 years, yes, it's good. But my point is that you cannot do urban development 4 years, 5 years. You cannot.
No, I would agree. You need the vision, absolutely, like a long-term vision. But then as it goes down to from 50 years to 40 years, 30 years, 20 years, 10 years, it needs to be more detailed. So we need really programs and projects to do it step by step. And for example, in Hamburg, it was long ago decided that railway was an important piece of the transport infrastructure for cargo. So the port of Hamburg, is well known, I guess, is 40% of all the hinterland transportation coming to the port of Hamburg and then going to the hinterland, to Germany and other European countries. 40% or more than 40% of that is by rail nowadays. So that's a huge share, and some people even say in Hamburg the port wouldn't be there anymore without the rail connection. So these are the examples that really tell you, okay, somebody decided this is important.
Yeah.
Somebody really did the implementation, and there's still performance
and somebody
topics,
continued
etc.
in our situation.
And somebody continued, etc. And that
Continuation,
it's maintaining the effort over a long period, because otherwise there's no way of really generating a system, because it's a huge investment, and it's huge efforts related to that.
So I sense there's a lot of hope. You think that our issue is not hopeless?
No, I don't.
There's a way out. You have done a lot of work, but I want us to share. I want to share this story that one of my colleagues, Maxwell Agbagba, put together. Now, whilst people are even going further, because you shared the going green experience with us, we're yet to start anything at all. But here's another situation. We're told government is set to establish a regulatory body that will solely be in charge of safety. Questions about the general safety of Ghana's rail sector have come up after a train killed a 59-year-old man on the 4th June at the Kwame Nkrumah Circle here in Accra. Here's a visit. Maxwell Agbagba, putting this together for us.
That was on Sunday. We just informed the family that he's going to Tichimono. And that day, in fact, all of us were shocked to even hear that was yesterday, to hear that we should come to the police morgue to identify a body. And when we got there, it was our brother. The rail passed on him, and the whole body was, tear into pieces. So yesterday at the morgue, we were able to bring it together so that at least we can be able to put him in a place.
After that gory incident on Sunday, we are here in the Central Business District to meet Comfort Adai. Comfort has been selling here in this market for decades. We want to find out from her how safe she thinks she is selling very close to the rail lines. We also want to know from her the danger involved and how she's able to do business here in this market.
I used to hawk here, but now I am old. That is why I'm selling here. We are usually scared, so we have to move away when we sight an oncoming train. We fear the train. They have decided to eject us from here, but we continue to beg them.
Problems are plenty problems, because there's brisk business along the tracks as well. So, picking this up, and I don't know, but it's not a hopeless situation. But I just want to say that you are here, Ketsi, the Secondary Takoradi Chamber of Commerce and Industry, because there's a conversation that's going to be starting on Friday. There's a dialogue session, something of the sort. You might want to tell us a bit about it.
I think the best would have been the Secondary Takoradi Chamber of Commerce themselves, but we've been invited to, not start, but deepen the conversation on the contribution of revitalizing the railways and how it can impact on the economic activities in the city of Secondary Takoradi. It's an amazing city.
Yeah, twin city.
It's the only twin city we have.
Yes.
Some of us grew up there, so it brings back memories. Gone were the days when you used to have the Carousel 7 with CK Man, Papa Youngson, Pat Thomas, this man, what do you call it, Ebi Krenzel.
Yeah.
And all those great guys used to be in Secondary Takoradi.
Well, now you have the Kofi Kinates.
Yeah, okay. And then you have the Jedubile Ambule, who is still around the corner. And then you used to have a lot of economic activities based on the timber business, on cocoa, on manganese. It was a great city. And the beautiful thing about Secondary Takoradi is that it used to be, or it is the only port in West Africa which was for the Allied forces during the Second World War. And it's the only city in Ghana that has all the arms of the army. You have the Navy, you have the infantry, you have the police, you have virtually all of them in the city, the Air Force. So it's a unique city. What we have not done very well is that we knew that was going to be the point where the oil business was going to be, booming.
Yeah.
And we did not match that with proper planning.
Thinking ahead.
There are a lot of commercial interest in Sekeni Takoradi. My question is, how much do they contribute to the city's development? And how are they organized to become a voice in the city's own planning?
Yeah.
And so this is going to be a very interesting conversation. And honestly, I am excited that the Chamber of Commerce, Sekeni Takoradi Chamber of Commerce invited us. And without sounding opportunistic, to invite a lot more of media, a lot more of interest parties to put their eyes on Sekeni Takoradi. We'll have the perspective of the German Hamburg experience in that.
You'd love Sekeni Takoradi, so we wish you well.
I'm excited.
Enjoy the Twin City.
We'll do that, yes. Thank you.
Okay, all right. I want to say thank you.
Thank you, too.
Thank you very much for sharing with us here on the show today.